it led to going to college for graphic design, doing freelance design on the side, and quickly finding some success within that, to the point where I was talking to my professor, and I was explaining, like, yo, I've designed for this band and this artist and whatever, and they were like, all right, so you've accomplished the task of like designing for professionally for bands and artists, and you're still in college trying to get a degree. Like, help me understand why you're here exactly. And so
Exactly.
he basically told me to drop out, so that's what I did. I got it.
This is Branding Like a Pro. Hey guys, what's going on? I'm your guy, Denis Boateng. This is Branding Like a Pro. And today we have an amazing guest. I would like to call him the designer, aka Mr. Renaissance, because he's changed the way things are being done when it comes to designing apparel. And he's a game changer in my opinion. So today we have the great FULLERMOE. What's up, brother?
Yeah. What's up, Dennis? Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it.
Dude, it's a pleasure to be sitting down with you, having this conversation. And thank you for your time.
Of course, man. I love what you're doing, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So, I just want to let the guests know, pretty much, I know I can't speak to everything that you've done, but I think that I can do a pretty good job, slight bio. You've designed for individuals like Childish Gambino, Wu-Tang. That's huge, by the way. If I'm not mistaken, Nirvana. And it's not just some designing to get just some merch off. This is more designing of you being a fan of these individuals, working within the industry, that being music. A lot of people go to concerts and they don't think about the branding and the work that goes into making things like that happen, building memorable pieces. So with all that being said, how did you get started? Where did your love for music come from? And when did you feel like you had something amazing that you wanted to contribute in design and music?
Man, so all of the dots started forming when I was really young. Always having music on in the house, playing music. We had instruments laying around. So music was always there. When I started, growing up, I started going to more concerts. I got into wearing band t-shirts. I had my favorite band tees that I would wear. But I wasn't as much into the art at that time. So it was like I had the music component, I had sort of the visuals being fed to me, whether it was like going into a store like Hot Topic and buying band t-shirts, or going to a concert, right? So like the dots were forming. And then when I got to the point where I was actually in a band and we needed merchandise, I was like, I'll give it a shot, because I know what good band merch looks like. And I had enough of an artistic like eye that I could give it a shot. And it turned out to be something I was like kind of naturally good at for whatever reason. So that was when all the dots sort of connected, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it was kind of born out of necessity when my band needed merchandise. So it just sort of took off from there. And I'm lucky enough that I have sort of like a perfectly split brain of like an entrepreneurial sense and like an art sense. So like right away I was like, all right, I think other people will pay me to make merch for their bands too. So it just sort
Mm-hmm.
of snowballed from there. And so it led to going to college for graphic design,
Mm-hmm.
doing freelance design on the side, and quickly finding some success within that, to the point where I was talking to my professor, and I was explaining, like, yo, I've designed for this band and this artist and whatever, and they were like, all right, so you've accomplished the task of like designing for professionally for bands and artists, and you're still in college trying to get a degree. Like, help me understand why you're here exactly. And so
Exactly.
the, he basically told me to drop out. So that's what I did. I got a job working with a merchandiser. I I learned, what I needed to learn on my own through, whether it was just trial and error, watching, this was a long time ago, so I didn't have access to the same tools that someone starting off today would have. So it was a lot of trial and error, but I got to the point where I became a creative director of a pretty big merchandiser, and then I split. I went freelance like 7 years ago, and I've
Hmm.
been building a portfolio ever since then with like you know, a few contacts from my previous job, but mostly just building off a portfolio that I've just created myself, and connections I've created on my own. So that's hopefully like a concise enough
No,
version
no,
of the
that's
story.
good.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
no, that's
there's been
perfect.
lots of bumps along the road, but yeah, it all makes sense when I look back. You know what I mean? Like there are just certain things where it's like, oh, it does actually make a lot of sense that I'm designing for bands and artists.
Yeah. Now, and I think that's where the beauty of your process and everything comes in for me, because through all of this that you've done for others, you've built a brand of your own, and that's the Fuller Mo brand. Like I
Yeah.
remember just chilling with homies, and they're like, "Bro, that dude Fuller Mo go crazy. Like he helps people just build brands out of nothing, like out the mud." So
Mm.
when did that idea come about for you?
It also formed very organically. Like I got to the point with my freelance design where I knew that there was probably something else I could be doing, and education just seemed very obvious to me because I had
Mm,
developed up this skill set and these certain styles that people hadn't really um, opened like the curtain on, like on YouTube. Like there was very few designers who were willing to like say like, no, like this is exactly how I do this thing. And
mm,
so again, it just was sort of out of necessity of me being like, I think there's a space for me to exist on YouTube that would be really helpful for people, because I know when I was coming up I would have loved to be able to just like watch hours and hours of design content from people who actually were within the industry, right? So
mm,
it started off just with doing YouTube videos, not expecting anything from it. Like literally my whole idea was just like, let me just like show people how I do what I do. If they're into it, cool. If they're not, whatever, because I know how YouTube works, and I know that you're just building like a back catalog that'll just be discovered, for years to come.
mm,
So fortunately, like within the first maybe like 6 videos, I did one that was actually based. It's hard to see. There's there's a Snoop design behind me,
mm,
and I was like, all right, maybe people want to see like this 90s vintage vibe that I've been doing for years. So I uploaded a video called just like vintage bootleg rap design, and it was based on a Snoop graphic I had done. And it kind of just took off. And I was like, damn, all right. So I might have found like a little audience here. Like people want to see more of this stuff from me. And so that led to doing more videos in that style. And that led to comments coming in where people were like, wait, what tool did you use here? What did you use on this part? And so that developed into like, oh, these are presets that I've made that are just for
mm,
personal use, like on different projects. And I started making them available. And so that led to like an e-commerce website, which led to like, again, me sort of drawing from this other well of knowledge in the e-commerce world, because I had had little stores, just little side hustles, building Shopify stores. So I was like, all right, I'm going to combine these two worlds. I'll build out a Shopify store. I'll make more presets. I'll listen to these comments and see what people want to see more of.
mm.
And that just sort of blew up and like has really become more, honestly, like from a monetary like business standpoint, 10 times more successful than freelance design has ever been. So now it's just a matter of like stoking these two fires of like still doing merchandise for artists because I love doing it, still
Mhm.
doing, YouTube videos, and then building out more presets and teaching people how to use them, how they can be useful for whatever kind of design work they're doing. So
Now that's fire. Dr. Fuller coming to your nearest university. Now that's fire though. And I think it's really dope that you're doing what you're doing because we do live in an age of information. Um, and I think it's such a selfless thing to be able to teach people, hey, this is how you can get your product to the next level. Because trust, used to be one of those people. Well, not used to be, still am. Like self-taught graphic designer and always on YouTube looking on how I can level up. Like what are the things that I need to polish up on to get certain result? Because I design merch too.
mm,
Not at your level, but it's just amazing to see, and also too what you've built within the brand. Like you're the go-to person. I mean, me personally, I don't know anybody else like when it comes to what you're doing who's like at the top or the go-to. Like we know that YouTube is like top search engine in the world, and when you type FULLERMOE, you know exactly what you're gonna get. So let me ask you this: what has been one of the toughest things, I guess, building the FULLERMOE brand?
toughest things, man. I mean, you have to wear a lot of hats. So I would say like really figuring out sooner than later what my strengths are in building the brand. So like I'd mentioned previously, you know, running ads like Facebook ads. I have some elementary knowledge of how to do that, but I learned early on like there's no way I can give 100% of my attention focus to this thing, which is so important for building the brand, while remaining the creative head and coming up with new ideas and building them out. So I think it's super important to figure out what your strengths are first and play to them and just hire help where you need it, because I think you're
Mhm.
going to get a hell of a lot further if you hire the right people earlier than later rather than relying on your own. It's good to have knowledge of as much as you possibly can, just so if nothing else you can speak the language of whoever you hire. But
Mhm.
if you're really trying to wear every hat, you're going to burn out right away. You're going to do subpar work, and
Mhm.
you're definitely like just not going to get the results that you're looking for. So I think for me, the Fuller Mo brand has evolved over the years, and I think it's just keeping everything very organic to me and making sure that nothing feels forced. That's been
Mhm.
super important. And that's not something that I was taught. It's just like, I'm not going to do this type of video because it doesn't play to my strength as a designer. I'm not going to do this type of ad because it doesn't feel like how I would talk. And it's not how I would talk to my audience or a stranger on the street, or you know what I mean? So I think it's just very important to be self aware from the beginning when you're building your brand so that everything you do feels organic.
No, that's right. That's good. And what I got from that is delegating and making sure that your team understand what the brand identity is, what the brand goals are, like the mission, the vision, and all that stuff. I think that a lot of people who are trying to build a long-lasting brand or business definitely encounter that. Um, my next question for you is just simply like, where do you want to take your brand?
I think continuing to flesh out my space within the educational like industry, whether that is, I mean, you made a joke before about like the college, but like
Hey, I was
I would
speaking into existence.
man, I would love to do something like that. Like I would love to have an online course that isn't just like, all right, follow these chapters, do, something thrown
Hmm.
together. I want it to be very focused on like building a community so that it's not just a one-off thing that people purchase. It's like, you're part of this Facebook group. You'll have access to like one-on-one sessions, or at least like group sessions, and
Hmm.
really make it more like a class. Like I would love to do that sort of thing. Um, Go on tour, like have face-to-face interactions, because it's it's been really interesting, like living on the internet more or less, like building out a personality on the internet that like I can go to LA now and I've run into, and it's, I say LA because half the people I talk to think I'm there already.
Yeah.
but I'll go out there and like I've been recognized out there, and I like, it's shocking first of all, but then secondly it's like, damn, I really love like meeting someone in person. So I think getting to a space where like I can have meetups, or like I mentioned, go on tour or something, and just like really
Hmm.
meet people and interact face to face. So that's definitely on the horizon. I think continuing to build out a website that is versatile in terms of like the genres of design that I'm speaking to, not just from like a stylistic standpoint, but like people that want to do poster design, people that want to do album artwork, and sort of really trying to build out this world where it's not just people who are into t-shirt designs, it's anyone who just wants to do like dope artwork. So I think
Hmm.
those two things are top of mind, um, going into next year for sure.
And those are amazing things. Um, However I can help, let me know. Me
Of
and
course.
wifey know about uh, course building and all that stuff, but we could talk about that off the air. Um, but now that's amazing. I think a lot of people would benefit from that, and I think that there's a lot of people looking for information on how to follow their dreams and their passions, and to be able to live off of that. So I think that's amazing. I'm looking forward to it. Um, what are some people that you're looking to work with in the future?
Man, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to check off a lot of boxes that were on my bucket list. But man, I mean, I I've been asked this before, and I always think of Nas right away. Like I
Mm,
wanted to design for Nas so bad. Um, for the 16-year-old me, for me now, like
mhm,
that would be a huge project to work on. Um, there's a lot of bands like the Beatles or something, like there are certain
mhm.
bands that I think would like make my parents really happy, who I'd love to
Yeah,
design for, because I've done enough to sort of feed my own soul. It's cool to like show my parents this stuff.
and it's
Um,
always lovely when your parents, when you make them feel like kids again.
yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to do like a throwback shirt they would have worn as like teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think honestly, more so, it's like trying to work with more individuals who are within the design space, whether that's like someone who works closely with Adobe, or like someone like you who's doing like a dope podcast, who's like giving out info on brand building, on whether it's like merchandising, t-shirt design, more of that. Like I feel like I've sort of, like I said, checked off enough boxes within the merch world that like I would much rather like go to like a complex con or something, and like meet someone who's building a brand, or like that sort of thing. I think that's a little bit more interesting to me right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think you would win at a complex con. Um, just I've been there 3 times.
Hmm.
Um, the first time I was working it, but not really. I was just enjoying myself. But being in that space and seeing so much going on, it's just FULLERMOE needs to be there. Your energy needs to be there. I think a lot of people would learn from you. Even just having you on panels, bro. Like, I I just think that you really have great information to share with the rest of the world. I mean, you're already doing it on YouTube, but like you said, just that interaction with people is just unmatched. Um,
I
Also,
appreciate
too,
that.
I just want to just continue to give you your flowers. Of course, I've seen a lot of your work online, even like the ads that I see. Uh, what's the creative process that goes into ads? I do want to talk about that a little bit because a lot of people, when they think about ads, they're just thinking, "Oh, I got to spend money," and it's boring, you know. But what's the creative aspect that goes into your ad building?
I think for me, so much of my personality is tied into the ads that if I try, and I've done this before, if I try to work with creative agencies and have them build out the ads, it just doesn't feel right. So
Mm,
I'm fortunate enough that like I can really take my phone and record something and it can become an ad and it'll feel on brand with what I'm doing. So I think for me, the creative process is more about like, what is the fastest way that I can get out this information and get to the point and just make it sound like it's coming from me and it's not like
yeah.
scripted.
Hmm.
So I'll give you an example. Over Black Friday, I was trying to promote this sale that was going on.
I
I do
peeped
it
it.
once a year. You probably saw the ad.
Yeah, I did.
And I kept filming myself and I was filming like my screen and I was like, man, I feel so corny just like saying like, hey, my site's 50% off. Like I'm not a good like salesman like that. And so I was like, all right, what is like a creative way that I can do this that'll feel organic and be like fun for me to do? And I actually got the idea from Gary Vee because he does this like green screen thing where he'll just like talk over ads or like
Yeah.
articles that are out rather. And he'll just talk about like, give his thoughts on an article. And I was like, man, what if I talked about an article that didn't exist about my Black Friday sale? It was like
Yeah.
TMZ wrote something. And so I just posted it as a reel, not even as an ad. I was just like, all right, this is like funny. And the reel starts like getting a ton of views. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This might actually work as an ad. And I'm lucky enough to work with a really smart social media manager. And she was like, yeah, like
This
we
is
need
it.
to run. This might be it. So it was in the middle of my sale. There was no intention of like using it as an ad. It just like happened to catch on and like be something that was just like funny to me. I try not to take myself too seriously, but it got people's attention. So I think when it comes to like building ads for me, that's like the perfect process where it's just like
Hmm.
I get to be creative. I get to use my own voice. I get to have fun with it. And it still effectively gets across whatever point I'm trying to make.
Now that was really clever, bro. Because when I seen it, I was like, "Yo, the homie going crazy." TMZ wrote about him.
Bro, my mom emailed me and she was like, "Hey, I saw this slander that's happening with TMZ." She's like, "Don't pay any attention to it." I was like, "Yo, this is a joke." Like I'm so sorry. I felt so bad. But yeah, I mean, some people thought it was real. Some people knew right away. If you were reading the comments, they're like, "Damn, this," and I love that. Like a lot of the comments were like, "This is just really good marketing." It's like
Nah,
it's
facts, bro. You killed it on that one. That was really good. It gave me like the Drake and 21 Savage vibes with the Vogue magazine.
yes,
Nah,
yes,
that was fire. But it's everything you're saying is very like real. I think that people need to be more authentic on how they're building their ads. I was actually just watching a podcast, and this person talked about how a lot of people are doing a lot of things that don't really align with their brands to get attention. So it's like at that point, people are just coming to you like, hold on, I thought I was coming to you to get this thing, but that's not what your brand is about. So then you're
Mm.
confusing your audience and consumers and all of that. But what you did was really good though. You
Thank
straight? You
you.
good?
I appreciate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah. I mean, honestly, since the beginning, like since I first started doing Facebook ads and I was just doing it on my own, the very first ad I ever made was just very straight to the point. It was just like, this is who I am, this is what I do, check it out. If you like it, cool. If not, that's cool too. Like, it doesn't have to be as complicated, I think, as people make it. If it feels natural and organic to you, chances are it's going to hit with other people and they're going to people can see if you're fake. We've all been on
Yeah.
the internet long enough now, and enough people have been called out for being fake for different things. Like, it's pretty easy to spot. And so I love that. That's my favorite comment, is when people will say, like, normally I would see an ad like this and keep scrolling. This just seems pretty like authentic. So I checked out your site or whatever. And so that's always been the mission for me. It's just like nothing overly produced, nothing super slick, just like facts. And if I've definitely, like, I have enough people who have commented, like, thinking that they think I'm trying to like pull something over on them, like, you didn't really design for Nirvana, you didn't design for Gambino, like all that. I'm
Well,
like,
why not?
I don't know what to tell you. Like, just spend 5 seconds on my Instagram, but
Yeah.
it's,
And you know what? It's just one of those things that, um, as I'm on my path to just learning and growing, and building content and working with people, is just one of those things. It's like it's not even about proving people wrong anymore. It's about inspiring people. Like turn people into believers. Like, hey, I was just curious enough to make this happen, and you could do it too. You know.
yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's been something that has been a little bit difficult for me to learn too. When you spend so much of your time kind of behind the scenes, just like being the designer, um, you don't have to face any of the criticism. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
put yourself out there, you have to be willing to hear some of that and just sort of ignore what needs to be ignored and appreciate when you do get those positive comments, because it's wild, bro. Like, you can get 100 positive comments and that one person that says
Yeah.
something negative is what you'll latch onto. So it's been a learning process for me, trying to just like drown out anything like that and just really focus on people that I have helped and the people that have DM me, like, that started brands or like became freelance designers or whatever the case may be, because I truly
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. And the other stuff is just, an unfortunate side effect of being on the internet.
Not facts. And I just want to reiterate, bro. Like your work and how me and my homies feel about what you're doing. It's like, bro's got it. You found a lane that a lot of people probably didn't see and was curious enough to be able to be like, let me go ahead and carve this path and make it happen. Because think about it, like I lived in LA for 4 years, and I think LA goes really crazy when it comes to thrifting and people buying like concert merch and all types of stuff. I used to be around too a lot, and just seeing what was going on in there. But people never thought about, man, I could create for an artist, or how do I make that happen? We never talk about those designers, right? So we talk about the people who are making their own merch or collaborations, but not the people who are actually making the merch that you buy at a concert that you like would love forever. I feel like those pieces are like coveted. You know what I'm saying? So to be able to meet someone like yourself who's like building these things is just amazing to see that you built a career out of it. You're able to take care of your home and amongst other things. That's genius, bro.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I would have loved to have someone to look up to when I was coming up, because it really was just a lot of trial and error. And I think you're right. Like, I definitely have received enough messages over the years from people who didn't really know that, like, being a merchandise designer was even a career that they could
Mm.
work toward, or they didn't know how they could get there even if they wanted to. So it is great. And also just the amount of, like, gatekeeping that I was not aware of within the
Yeah.
industry. Like, I just didn't know, because I consider myself just like a generous person. You have a question for me, I'll answer it. I'm not going to keep secrets. I don't care. It doesn't do
Yeah.
me any good. I'm not going to go to the grave, with all this knowledge or whatever. Um, but it's crazy, like, the amount of people who are like, "Thank you for not gatekeeping this information." Um, that makes me feel really good. So I'm glad that, like, people recognize that, and even more so are doing something about it.
Nah, for sure, bro. I mean, even how we connected, I was just like, bro, are you a complex con? Because I was like, oh, Fullermoe's got to be here, But it's dope that we connected over Instagram, and you giving your time, availability to have conversations with me. So that's really dope. But before I let you out of here, I got a couple questions. What are your top brands? And it doesn't have to be clothing brands. Top brands that you interact with on a daily that you
Top
actually love.
brands. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I interact with any particular brand daily. I think for me, it's like finding brands that fit a certain thing that I'm just like that I'm into. Personally, I love, like, Fear of God, and it's due to their simplicity
Mm-hmm.
mixed with just how the clothes fit. Like, it's very simple
Mm-hmm.
for me. Just like, it fit me great. I like it. I like how simple it is. So I love what Jerry Lorenzo has done, and I've been following him since the beginning of his career. So that's just been dope to see.
Yeah.
Um, I love Represent, who's a brand from the UK.
Yep.
Again, simplicity. I'm just, as much as I design these crazy, like, graphic tees, I'm a simple guy. Like,
Yeah.
give me like a little logo, I'm good. So I think those two brands, and then I would say that actually my favorite band of all time is The Clash, and
Mm-hmm.
their branding, which I think if you said the word branding to anyone who's in The Clash, they might throw up. But it is branding. It's just punk branding. Like, they have a dope logo. They've had great album artwork over the years, and it's iconic. So I think when you develop that sort of thing, it just becomes a good brand naturally. So I would say The Clash, Fear of God, and Represent.
Yeah. Now that's fire, and I'm familiar with all those. So that's really dope. Well, bro, I'm not gonna hold you. Where can people find you? How can they take part in the tools that you have available? And where they find all that?
For sure. So I'm most active on Instagram. It's just at fuller.moe. If you want to check out the website, it's fullermoe.com. That's where you'll find all the design tools and presets. There's a demo video on the site where I just tried to sort of quickly give a rundown of, like, what the tools can do, how they can be used. So that's worth a watch. And then YouTube is just Fuller Mo. And so that's where I have hours and hours of design tutorials. I try to break out and give a little bit of advice when I think of something that might be useful. But yeah, those are the three places that you can find what I do.
Oh, that's perfect. Also, to you guys watching, if you want to learn the basics of branding, make sure that you tap in with Branding Like a Pro. We have a branding roadmap available. You can hit the link below. And like Fuller said, make sure you check out his work, subscribe to his channel, subscribe to this one, and make sure that you guys get y'all branding right. Fuller, thank you so much for your time. And thank you, bro. We'll holler at you later.
All right, sounds good, Dennis. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
All right, peace, brother.